Want to achieve network marketing success? Then you're in the right company. Hello, and welcome to Leave Nothing to Chance, hosted by networking marketing giant John Solider. Learn everything you need to know about the network marketing space from somebody who's actually done it. Join us every week for front row seats as we feature some of the finest and most successful personalities in network marketing. Leave nothing to chance. Join us now.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Leaving Nothing to Chance podcast. And it's hard to believe, Keith, it's already the middle of October. It's unbelievable how time is moving along.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to March and April and May and June. It's gone.
It really is amazing. It's like the summer's over and we're into the middle of fall and we'll be blinking and it'll be Christmas, right? But that's the way it works. But, Keith, I wanted to talk about a few things today. And, we're going to ad-lib this a little bit. Normally we go by Q&A, but Keith's been a guest on the call before. And, Keith co-authored one of the two greatest books in network marketing history, Moving Up 2020. Keith was my co-author on that book. And I say that because, Keith, unlike most people who write books in this industry, you and I are actually distributors. We actually get paid as distributors. We're not consultants and we're not super duper network marketing, superheroes. We're guys who actually go out, talk to people all day and get doors slammed in our face and get people tell us that we're crazy and that's never going to work and you can't make money with that. And yet here we are, 40 years for me. What are you up to now? You're up to about 30 something?
36, 35, I don't know.
So somehow, with all of that, you and I have survived. There's a lot of our guests that have been on the show that are network marketing, not only survivors, but achievers. And, there's things that everyone, there's a common thread that every one of those successful people that I've interviewed over the last almost 2 years now has had. So let's talk about some of them. Let's start with mentorship. You had a great mentor in this industry. A lot of people know him, but a lot of people may not. Talk about who your mentor was and some of the basic fundamental things that he shared with you.
Well, my mentor was a gentleman by the name of Bob Schmidt, and Bob is no longer with us. He went to see the Lord in a kayaking accident that he was fishing. And had an unfortunate accident kayaking some 10 years ago. But Bob was a great mentor, and Bob and I were great friends. Not everybody liked Bob, but everybody respected Bob. Okay, not everybody liked him. I happen to like him and respect him, but Bob was a very no nonsense kind of guy. And with that mentorship, John, that you're talking about, that's what made Bob unique. Is Bob would tell somebody the truth when they didn't want to hear it. Okay. And sometimes, that made it uncomfortable conversations. But Bob, what I think with that mentorship with Bob, what was so important is Bob did what he told everybody else to do. Now, give it just a real quick background. Bob had been a double diamond Amway distributor. He had been an executive field advisor in a company called Mattal. He'd been a presidential in something called New Vision. He sold all of those businesses and went on to the next one. He didn't go from deal to deal to deal and take his people. He just, built the business and at a certain point decided to go another direction. He sold each and every one of those businesses. And then when he unfortunately passed away, he was with another company. He was making $100,000 a month. Okay, pretty successful. Okay. But Bob lived by the mantra, do absolutely nothing that the brand new distributor that signed up 30 minutes ago can't do. That was his main thing. So Bob was real strong on inviting. The thing you needed to learn was that your 90-second, 30-second, 60 seconds, no more than 90-second invitation for the people to find out something. Okay. And you did that by sharing a story. Your story, the part of maybe whatever the company story is, but just enough of it to cause people to want to know more. And it was that invitation that was that mentorship. And Bob and I were friends I met Bob in 1989, and I was way down deep in his organization, just happened to hit it off, and spent a lot of time with Bob. And when he died in I thought it was 2012. Okay, so it's been 10 years. But we were friends for a long time. And it was one of those things that when we looked at it, because Bob's point was, if the people you bring into the business can't be successful, you're doing something wrong. And if you make it about you, if you make it about the guy that's standing in front of the room, if you make it about the guy that's on the video, you make it about the guy that's doing the presentation on the Zoom, if you make it about that, then that person you're bringing into the business is going to have a really tough time. But if you make it about the invitation of people finding out more about what you got into the business about, one of the things that I learned from Bob, an invitation that Bob used. So, once again, all credit to Bob for this invitation. If I could show you how to make some additional income without disturbing what you're currently doing, would you want to get all the facts? That was the invitation. Okay. And then once he did that, then Bob would say, hey, that's great. We're both busy right now. If I send you something, and at that point we were giving people things or whatever it happens to be, will you take a look at it? Okay. And then from there on, he let the tools do the work. Bob's point was let the tools do the heavy lifting. And that was that part of mentorship, John. And I know you're a master of that as well. You're a master at the mentorship of people, of developing the leaders and making sure that people understand, look, their job is to develop leaders. Their job is not to be a star on YouTube, right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, business in general, to own your own business is not easy under any circumstance. And then, current circumstances economically. But the people who think that somehow they're going to build big businesses by just using one tool, be it social media tools, be it Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and that's going to build a business, it's not. The reality is it just doesn't. Now, would I love to sponsor somebody into my business who had 10,000 followers, 50,000 followers, 100,000 followers? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, until they communicate a message one-on-one, a personal message, hey Keith, let me share an idea. One of the things I learned from one of my mentors out of the multi-level realm, by the way, this was a gentleman by the name of Joe Gandolfo in the insurance industry. And Joe used to say to people, if I could share an idea that's helped accountants or helped lawyers or helped car salesmen or helped whoever, he would personalize it to the profession that he was selling to. And I adopted that in network marketing. If I know somebody's a doctor, I'm like, hey, let me share an idea that's been beneficial to doctors. If a guy's an accountant, same thing. Hey, let me show you something that's helped out some other accountants. I personalize it to them. So it's great to have all that social media stuff. And I got some of it, and you got some of it, and a lot of people listening to the show have some of it. But don't become so reliant on that you think you're going to build a massive organization, because this is still a business where people buy from people. So when you pick up the telephone and you call that friend that's in your social media world that and you say, hey, listen, man, I really want you to hear about XYZ program or product or opportunity or service for that matter. There's certainly some services that are great in network marketing. That's really how you do it. Okay. And a lot of the guys who really have never built businesses, they're writing about all these, social media, this and that, and the other thing. And it's not wrong, but it's really not right. I haven't seen yet where it really works. At the end of the day, this is still a one-on-one business. Now, one-on-one, because of technology, can be, email or text or WhatsApp or, all these other things, because we all don't live in the same place. But, I interviewed Tom Schreider a few weeks ago. Tom is a legend in the industry, one of the smartest guys I've ever interviewed, Keith, like yourself, a guy who takes a very complex subject of building a business and brings it down to very simple. And Tom talks about the same concepts about talking to your next door neighbor. Are you going to get in your car? Are you going to drive 300 miles to talk to somebody? Or are you going to talk to the guy next door that you can say, hey, let's go sit in the backyard and have a cup of coffee and let me tell you about this, right? I mean, the masters understand this still, whether they're old guys like us or whether they're some of the young upcoming people, that they understand that. But let's go back to Bob Schmidt for a minute, because I remember the first time, and I never had the opportunity to meet Bob, unfortunately, but I remember sitting around with Tom Alcazin, BK Barreco, and Jeff Weisberg, and a couple of other guys somewhere. I think I was in Phoenix. Who knows? Been a lot of places over the years, but we were sitting around, and the name Bob Schmidt came up. And every one of those guys, all very successful distributors in their own right, every one of them talked about this Bob Schmidt guy and some of the things that he taught. But one of the things that you shared with me that makes so much sense is the meeting at night, right? The normal, 7 o'clock, 7:30 opportunity meeting for whatever company, Tuesday night or Thursday night or Saturday morning, whatever it is. Bob liked those meetings, but Bob didn't go to that meeting to do anything else but to sell the real meeting. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, Bob's point was the 7 o'clock meeting, the Zoom that's going to occur tonight, or whatever event that you're bringing people to. Bob's want to know what were the 3 meetings that you did earlier that day before to set the table for the people to be there. Bob was always about those other tables, the other meetings. Bob had a phrase that I love. That people talk about, well, we want to get the people to the meeting. We want to get the people to the meeting. Bob's question was very simple. When was the last time you bought a refrigerator in a group? Okay. I mean, I heard Bob use that 100 times. When was the last time you bought a refrigerator in a group? You don't. These are individual decisions. And that's what we're making here, and Bob, I mean, John, you're here and you're talking about giving the people the truth, and there was a statement from that movie, A Few Good Men. Sometimes people can't stand the truth. The truth of this is, if you'll follow the fundamentals, Bob's point was, if Bob was going to sponsor you into the business, the next step after you saying you wanted to join the business, Bob says, not so fast there, cowboy. Okay. Who are the 10 or 15 people we're going to talk to? If you don't have the 10 or 15 people down, if you haven't decided who those are going to be, there's no reason to go forward. Okay. And here's the next thing. You can't talk to any of them. Okay. Bob was real close on this training. And this was part of Bob's training that I saw over and over again, is don't go talk to people on your own when you signed up. That brand new distributor, right? Bob was always about the point, don't do anything that brand new distributor can't do. Okay. Well, how is a brand new distributor going to know what tools to use? They're not. So here's the point with Bob. Great. You've got your 10 people. Okay. Let's have a conversation. Tell me about these 10 people. Tell me how you know them, what you think is important to them. And then we'll develop a strategy on how you're going to approach them and what tool you're going to use. Because see, you know the tools. I know the tools. The people that have been in whatever company they're with for the number of years, they know all the tools. That brand new distributor that signed up 30 minutes ago, they don't know any of the tools. But they can make that list of 10 people and they can have a conversation with you to get that great coaching, John. And they tell you about who these 10 people are. And then you can tell them, well, this is a phrase you want to use to get the people to take a look at this particular tool. And that's how that's done. And the idea is that you can train those people that's all they need to do. Okay. So they come in the business, they make their list of 10 people, they go through the process, get great coaching, they sponsor a couple of them, and they go, well, now what? Well, let's get those 2 or 3 people that you sponsored into the business. Let's get them down. Let's find out who their 10 or 12 best contacts are. Let's develop a strategy for them to do that. You listen in while I work with them to do that. Okay. And then we're going to have a conversation and develop the invitation and the tool that we're going to use for that person. And by the time you do that, like 3 levels deep, you're going to get the call that says, hey, Keith, I don't need you anymore. I can do that. I can do that training. And that's where you start to duplicate. So you get out of the way. Too many times people want to be the personality. Okay, if you have a business and it's built off of personality, it's going to be a real challenge, because what happens when that personality is not available? Okay, but if you got the tools and you got the invitation, hey, let me ask you a question. If I could show you how to double your income without disturbing what you're currently doing and been able to do it from home, would you want to get all the facts? Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, give me your email and whatever, and I want to send you whatever the tool that I want to use, okay, to do that with. Or, whatever that invitation part that you've developed. But the key to that is once you do the invitation to send them whatever this tool is going to be, now's the time that you stop talking. Go away, go home, call it. Don't, because if you continue to talk, you're going to lose the sale. John, they taught you that in the insurance business, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Shut up, take the money. Get the guy processed. And there's some truth to that. Be it network marketing, be it insurance sales, be it car sales, be it real estate sales. There's a point when the consumer is saying, take my money. I want to move on. I have other things to do today. I have phone calls to return. I have to run my business. While you're making money in your business, while I'm buying from you, I'm losing money in my business because I'm not taking care of my customer or my potential customer. And that's something that is old school, but it's learning to shut up and say, okay, are you ready to get started? Key phrase that I learned, 40 some odd years ago. Are you ready to get started? If the person says, I got to go home and talk to my wife, my accountant, my lawyer, and my landscaper, well, great. There's nothing more to talk about. Go home and talk to all those folks, and then let me know, and you can follow up, and most of the time they're putting you off, frankly, if they say that. In case you don't know that already, if you listen to this show, you probably already know that. But at the end of the day, there are people that do really have to go home and talk to mama or talk to papa and say, hey, you know what? I'm thinking of doing this thing. Let me explain it to you. Here's the secret sauce with that one, Keith, that I found over these last 40 years. Great. But when you talk to the missus, Keith, let me call her and talk to her too. Okay, you explain to her what you're thinking of doing, network marketing, product, boom, 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 boom. You present that side, okay, as only you can to your significant other. But let me talk to her. Let me just explain that, hey, I'm not looking to just take your husband's money and run away. I work with people. I lock arms with people. We're going to build a network together, just like your telephone system or your internet operator. They're all networks. I kind of explain the networking to them, that's what we're going to be doing, which is a perfect illustration of what you shared that Bob Schmidt taught you is, hey, you get those first 10 or 15 people, 3 become customers, 2 join the business, 1 says, okay, I want to do what you do. And they go and talk to 10, 15, 20 people, start lining them up. And before you know it, you got a runaway leg and you got business going and you got momentum going. And that is exactly when I think back, because I'm being very reflective the last few weeks for a lot of reasons. But when I think of 1983, Tommy Husted, my sponsor, okay, that's exactly what he taught me. Okay. And I got started and it was like, well, you got 10 or 15 guys. I don't know what I have, but I had guys and you know the story, Keith. I started with a guy in the gym who was a roofer. Guy worked out of my gym. He was a roofer and he had another friend and I forget what that guy did, but we had a meeting that first Saturday. I got started on a Wednesday, I think it was. And on Saturday, I had these guys and we sat down at Westwood Nautilus, Westwood, New Jersey, my hometown. We sat down. And by the end of that weekend, I made $800. Well, $800, 1983, what was I, 20, I don't know, 21 years old? 1983, $800 is today, I don't know, $2,000. I was excited. Tommy didn't need to teach me anything. You know what I mean? It was like, just get out. Okay, I know what to do now. You go back to, your house and I'll do the rest. And that is exactly how our business really still works today. But what's happened is we've gotten it confused with that we're going to be social media gurus, or we're going to be internet gurus, or we're going to be, we're going to be given speech gurus. Well, all those skills are terrific. I'm not belittling any of them. But at the end of the day, if you forget how to talk to your next door neighbor to tell them what your product and your opportunity is, then you've missed the point. You've missed the secret sauce to our business is to constantly have a flow of people. Let's talk about that a little bit on your end. So you learned the business from one of the greats, Bob Schmidt. And what else did Bob teach you? What are we missing, Bob? I know that was a lot, but
there's a lot because, like I said, I mean, I spent over 20 years with Bob, and then I traveled with Bob a little bit and spent some time with him and his family and got to know him really well. But one of the things that Bob talked about that I think a lot of people, there's a misconception of network marketing being a sales job. They're you've got the guru trainers that go out and say, well, you get 12 new customers a month, okay, or something. Look, you always want to talk to your family and friends. If you don't believe in your product to the point that you think everybody should be using it, you need to get in another company. Okay, so that's first. So make sure you believe in your product. Make sure that you're using the product. Make sure you feel good about the product. Okay, that's number one. But the other thing that Bob laid out with it was, you know, building your network marketing business is like building a house, a building, whatever it is, to the architecture of it. Okay. And the architecture of it is, if you sponsor 3, 4, maybe 5 people that will take your opportunity seriously, okay, that's where your business is going to be built from. 90% of your income is going to come from those 3, 4, 5 people. Okay. So the key to that is sit down and make that list. I would suggest, you know, more like 25. Okay. And people say, well, I don't know 25 people. Well, I tell you what, if I'm going to throw a party, if you get to throw the party and I get to pay for it, I'll guarantee you there'll be more than 25 people on the list. Okay. So that isn't the issue. The issue is, do you believe in this? Okay. And if someone, coming back to Bob, if someone tells you, well, I don't have 10 people to talk to, okay, and they won't tell you who those 10 people are, here's what I know with you know, over 30 years, 25, 30 years, whatever it is, in network marketing here, 34 years or whatever it is, you did something that caused that person to feel uncomfortable that they don't want you to do to their friends. Okay. So if you can't get those 5, 6, 7 conversations, if you can't get them to tell you who the people are and develop the strategy about, you know, how they should present this to them, if you can't get to that point, okay, you need to step back and evaluate. Okay, because you did something that caused them to do, you did something that caused them not, that you don't want, that they don't want you to do to their friends. Because Bob was also reflective on something that every meeting, and I saw Bob do this multiple times. Okay, after every meeting, Bob had a routine he went through, and that routine was, what can I do better next time? Not what I did wrong, okay, whatever, but what can I do better next time? And that didn't matter if it was a one-on-one or he was standing in a hotel room doing a meeting with 1,500 people in the room. Bob always, when Bob finished, Bob always took a couple of minutes to evaluate and say, what can I do better next time? Okay, so that sharpens your sword. But Bob was real, and you know, once again, we give a lot of accolades to Bob because he deserves them. Okay, Bob taught me a lot, and the point was, so if you're sponsoring somebody into the business, and I'm telling you to make a list of 20 to 25 people, and we're going to go through that list and develop a strategy to share this with them, and 3 to 5 of them are going to join you in the business, and we're going to work with them to build a business that can set you free financially. I better make sure I'm not doing something that you don't want me to do to your family and friends. And that was a key from Bob, John.
Well, boy, that's powerful because, you know, I think of you know, two of my indirect mentors, because I never met either one. One I mentioned earlier, Joe Gandolfo in the insurance business, and there was also Joe Girard in the car business. And when you read anything that those guys wrote, and those guys were the real deal. I mean, Girard was I may still be in the Guinness Book of World Records for retailing, not fleet selling, but retailing the most cars in history, or in a year or whatever, like 600 some odd cars, which is astronomical amount. And Gandolfo was the first insurance agent in history to sell $1 billion of premium in a year. I mean, picture that, $1 billion, a lot of money. Anyway, that said, both of those guys, and I can't quote them verbatim, I haven't read their stuff in a number of years, but just like Bob, what did I do wrong not to earn your business? Because those kind of guys' minds, and my mind's not as good as those guys, but it stretch your imagination, Keith. I wish it was. But what those guys were really smart about was saying, hey, when I win, I know why I won. But when I lose, help me get better. Let me know why, you know, to your point, did I wear the wrong aftershave? Did I look at your wife in some way that you think I looked at her inappropriately? Did I, you know, not comb my hair today? Did I show up dressed inappropriately? Whatever it happens to be, and to ask that person for that honest feedback. And sometimes it's just, hey, man, I just don't have the money. You know, okay, well, you know, that's acceptable too, especially in the current times. But a lot of times we grow by asking that question of, why didn't I earn your business? What did I do that cost me your business? Love your thoughts on that.
Well, because that comes back to the point, okay? Because if you believe in your product, and you believe in your company, you believe the things that are there, and those, and look, saying, oh, gee, going into a rally and get all excited about it, and you're all excited and believe that. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're saying, man, this thing isn't going the way I want it to go. Okay, but you still believe in the company and the product. Okay, you still have that belief that's there, because see, you coming back to those invitations. Okay, if I can show you something that'll make your life better, would you want to get all the facts? Okay, and then moving those tools along, and then the point with the tools, and this is where Bob was masterful, and where we should always work on getting better. Okay, so you invite somebody to take a look at something. Okay, and one of the things that happens is somebody says, yeah, I'll take a look at it. It'll go there and whatever, because Bob taught me, John, and this was years ago, and anybody that's been in sales understands this, how not ever to have a no-show. Okay, a no-show is unacceptable. Okay, a no-show is because you didn't invite them and they didn't accept the invitation. Otherwise, they're there. Okay, so Bob's point is, look, when you invite somebody, hey, if I send you this information, will you take a look at it? Can you do it in the next, are you going to be able to do it today, or is it going to be tomorrow? Okay, whatever it happens to be. And then you close with a statement. Hey, let me ask you, you are good at keeping your word, right?
Of course.
They just accepted the invitation. They locked themselves in, because now it gives you the ability to come back with, look, things happen. People get busy. People do whatever. Do I mean that you set an appointment and everybody's going to show up? No, but what they're going to do, they're not going to just not show up. They're going to contact you ahead of time to let you know that they can't make it. Something's come up. Things always come up. But when they come up, you have to be prepared to reset the schedule for the next meeting. You don't just cancel it. Okay. But Bob's point you'll never have a no-show if you take that. But that's a tough deal. That's just why it's hard for when people starting to work cold market. Okay, because you have to be able to say to that person that you don't know very well, hey, let me ask you a question. You are good at keeping your word, right? Well, hey, if something comes up and you're not able to do it, let me know and we'll get it rescheduled. But so you've got my info. And that's how you don't have no-shows. And that's how you're going to have people look at the information. But it also gives you that ability to follow up with that information. Okay, so you follow up with it. Okay, today is the day that the person's listening to this. 2 days out from now, they had somebody supposed to take a look at something. They didn't do it. Okay, because here's how you know. This is one of the things from Bob. You call them up and you say, hey, John, just following up with you. I wanted to know when you're going to get a chance to take a look at that info I sent you. Okay, because see, here's what I know. If you had looked at the information, you would have contacted me. Because you didn't look at it, you didn't contact me. Therefore, when I contact you, I don't have to start the conversation with, hey, what'd you think of it? Because I know you didn't watch it. Okay, and you never ask somebody what they thought of whatever the information is. Okay, so what you do is you do the follow up and you say, hey, just following up with you to make sure, hey, did you get that email with that link that I sent you? Okay, great. When are you going to get a chance to look at it? Well, I'll get to it, whatever. Are they going to say to you, well, how do you know I haven't looked at it? Because you haven't called me. Because if you'd have looked at it, you would have. Because see, here's what I know. You're smarter than me. So I know if you'd have looked at it, you'd have called me. Okay. So you don't have to be mean about it. Okay. You don't have to be rude or whatever, because life gets in the way, man. People get busy. They intended to look at it, but they just didn't have the time, whatever. Okay. But once again, but you've got to do the follow-up, and the follow-up is the fortune. And this is back to that mentorship. So when somebody says they've got 10 people on a piece of paper and you've identified their top 5, and you've given the invitation, and they've called the people and given them the invitation and sent them stuff. Now, my job, your job, that's listening here as the upline mentor to them, is to follow up with them and say, where are we at on following up with these individuals? Okay, and help them with that process of not badgering their family and friends, okay, but to simply be able to call them and say, hey, I just wanted to make sure, did you get that? I was talking with Keith, and he asked me to get back with you and see if you got that email that I sent you. Okay, well, yeah, I got it, but I haven't had a chance to look at it. Yeah, I know, because if you had it, you'd have called me, because I told Keith how smart you were. Okay, so I know that you would have, if you'd have seen it. So do I need to send it to you again, or you still got it? Because Keith's going to follow up with me in a couple of days to see where we're at, where we're moving to. Okay. So you can do this in not too rough. Okay. But there has to be a process to it, just like building a house. Okay. You got the architectural plans. Well, the architectural plans are the invitation. Okay. The person has their 5 or 10 people. They know how to invite each one of those. They know the tool that they're going to use for each one of them. And then the follow-up with those people. And you're going to follow up with those people. Here's the good news and the bad news. Okay. You're going to follow up with those people 3 to 5 times to get them to watch it. Now, why are you going to have to do that? Because they need to know that you're serious.
Mm-hmm.
All they're doing is testing you to see if you're serious. Because see, you've talked to them about something else in the past, or they've talked to you about something in the past, or somebody else has talked to them about something like this in the past. And they go, well, if I just ignore them, they'll go away because I know they're not serious. They'll be on to something else next week.
Exactly.
Okay. So stay on that process, John.
Well, here's the thing too, that with tools, Keith, love your thought on this. The right tool for the right job. Now, my father was an electrician, so he would leave the house every day with his tool belt, and he had a hammer and chisel and screwdrivers and a variety of other things, pliers, all sorts of things in that tool belt. And there were days when he might use 7 or 8 tools, depending on the job. There were days maybe he didn't use any tools. There were days he probably used 1 or 2 tools. When you're building a network marketing business, every company, every decent company anyway, they got a variety of tools. They got brochures, they got videos, they got all sorts of things you can listen to, watch, look at, etc. Right? And that's great and terrific. But you got to fit the tool for the right person. How do you do that?
That's where you come back with the training. So when you sponsor someone into the business and they've got their list of 5 or 10 people, preferably more than that, but let's just say it's 10. So we're going to go down the 10 and we're going to identify the top 5. And what we're going to identify is, how do you know them? Tell me what's important to them in their lives. Okay. Let's say you've got somebody that is in their late 30s, late 20, early 30s, late 30s, husband and wife. They got a couple of kids. The wife has a job. They're looking for some additional money. She'd like to be a stay-at-home mom. Okay. I'm sure you have a tool for that. Okay. Because I know we do. Okay. You have a tool for that particular person that's going to do what? Tell a story. To do what? Cause them to want to know more. Or maybe you have somebody that's in the healthcare business, somebody that's a chiropractor, massage therapist, an RN, an LVN, a doctor, whatever. You got a different tool. Okay. You got a story. Okay. You got a different storyteller that's relating back the same principles as to what the one with the girl talking about, being able to be a stay-at-home mom. Maybe you got somebody that's a high-level executive and they're getting ready for retirement. Okay. Or maybe they're 50, 55 years old. They're looking at this. They're going, man, I want to cut back. I want to do a couple of other things, but I don't want to, I want to continue to do something. That's a different tool. That's not the same tool you're going to use for the 35-year-old mother that wants to be a stay-at-home mom. It's not the same one you're going to use with a doctor, LVN, RVN, chiropractor, massage therapist. You're going to use one that's a tool that's designed with a presentation of, in our instance, a lady that was a high-level executive that while she was coming in, still working, she developed an income, okay, because of our product that she loved. That's where she went with. So it's about those different tools. But see, that's where it comes back, because see, that brand new distributor that just signed up 30 minutes ago, they don't know those tools. Those tools are 10, 15-minute videos. They haven't had a chance to review the 6, 8, 10 different tools that are the primary tools that we have. They haven't had a time to review them. That's why they don't want to go. I don't want them talking to anybody. Let's talk about who they are. Then we'll tell you which tool to use to go do the job. Okay. That's that mentorship, and that's where you're training. Because see, while you're training them, by the time you do this with them and you do it with the people they sponsor and you get to the next people, they've seen all these tools. They know what they are. Okay. And then they'll know how to do exactly what we did. And we don't do anything other than point and direct.
And you're making a lot of great points, but one of them too is let somebody do what they're comfortable doing. If somebody says, hey, you know what, I'm really good at giving somebody a brochure, a product brochure, for example, and you have a decent product brochure for your company, that's what you let them do. You don't say, well, wait a minute, you got to get on the internet, you got to get your Facebook page up, and you got to go learn Facebook Live, and you got to learn. No, gonna lose them. Gonna lose me. Would have lost me in 1983 if you told me that in 2022, which some people have, by the way. Some of the gurus in the industry are preaching this stuff. And I also often ask them, can I see a copy of your check from a multi-level you've actually built in 2022? Because they're all full of bull. They're not doing what they're telling you that they're doing. Okay, they're theorizing it. One of the things we talk about in moving up 2020 is theory versus application. Hey, if the guy doesn't have a check today in multi-level, he doesn't have a real check, don't listen to him, because he might have built his business at another time. Okay, and that's not to slam anybody. I got nobody in mind when I'm saying that. Just to say, hey, for 40 years, I've earned checks as an independent distributor, and I've consulted for big companies. Okay, but at the same time, I've always been in the field. If somebody's not in the field, don't listen to them, because they're not doing what they're asking you to do. Keith, David Goggins, who you're familiar with, you've listened to Goggins, and he's a little raw. Okay, David Goggins wrote a book called "You Can't Hurt Me." Navy SEAL, by the way, served our great country on several different occasions. But David talks about the same thing. I was listening to a podcast to him the other day, and he said, most of the time, all these gurus are telling you to do stuff that they either never did or they haven't done it in a long time. So don't listen to them. Be your own leader. Work with the person who's got you in the business that's achieving, that can show you what they're doing, and then fit the tool on your tool belt to what you're comfortable with. Okay. Now, I'm not saying, and Keith's not saying, don't learn new skills. We're old dogs. Keith's in his 70s. I'm in my 60s. No problem learning the internet. No problem learning social media. But do not become dependent or think you're going to build a business with something that you don't really know about. But can you hand a brochure to the guy on the treadmill, okay, at the gym, and say, hey, let me tell you about this product. And hey, listen, man, you're training, I'm training. I got one in my bag. Let me bring it to you and give it to you. Go take a look at it at home, and I'll see you here, on Thursday, and we can talk a little more. That's how I built my businesses over the years, is just talking to people. Okay. And that doesn't mean it's the only way, but it's worked for me. Okay, it's worked for Keith, and that's kind of what we're saying. And Bob Schmidt, Keith, I think, he's not here to answer, but I think Bob would probably agree with that fit the tool for what the person is comfortable using and utilizing. Thoughts?
Absolutely, it's all about the right tool for the right job. Okay, and but I want to, as we're coming up on the end of the show here soon, want to address one major issue that is holding people back. Okay, is they believe that they go in and do a qualification. So I want somebody to make a list of 10, 15, 20 people, whatever. Don't qualify. Okay, because see, here's who I'm looking for. Everybody says, well, who am I looking for network marketing, for my network marketing opportunity? Here's who you're looking for. The people that make too much money, too well educated, too socially connected, that you think would ever be interested in network marketing. Those are the people we want to talk to, and we'll get them all. Exactly. One more time. The people that make too much money, too well educated, too socially connected, too busy, okay, to ever be interested in network marketing, and we'll get them all. Okay, because people decide, they don't tell people about what they're doing. Oh, no, I don't. I wouldn't tell them. Okay, I wouldn't tell them about that. Bob had a great response to that as well. Hey, John, I'd love you to take a look at what we're doing. I know you're too busy. I know you got too many things to take care of, but I'd love you to know what Sandra and I are doing, and I'd love you to know why we're doing it. If I send you this link to this short video, will you watch it? Because I simply want you to know what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Keith, it's a great point, and let's go one step further on. There's an old saying, busy people get things done, right? Busy people get things done. For example, one of the other guys we've interviewed here a few times, the great Dan McCormick. Dan's one of the top distributors in one of the largest companies in the industry, and he's an icon. And Dan is a guy that, every time I talk to him, he tells me what he's reading. He's reading Miracle Morning right now, okay? And prior to that, the 5 a.m. Club. Well, Dan is up at 4:30 in the morning. Dan's at work. Okay, he does his reading of his spiritual stuff. He does his exercises. He had his quiet time at that time in the morning. But 9 o'clock at night, Dan's still up working. Okay. And he's a super successful guy. And I just used Dan to illustrate this point, Keith. Years ago, prior life to my current multi-level company, my prior company, we had a guy in a downline and his wife, and you'll relate to this being, in the agriculture business like you've been for forever. This guy actually was a bull embryo salesman. He and his wife had a bull embryo business. They lived up in Vimy, Alberta, about 100 miles north of Edmonton, I think it is. And anyway, had his private plane. And we were about the same age at that point, in mid-30s. And I'll never forget when he first got into business, because I knew he had this humongous ranching operation and he was selling these embryos all over the world. And I'll never forget saying, Jack, how in the world are you ever going to find time for this? He goes, oh, no problem. When I'm on my plane flying, he goes, I got nothing to do but call people. He would call people from his airplane, okay, which is pretty impressive, by the way. I don't know if you ever got a call from somebody with their private airplane, but I did from Jack a few times. But Jack was a perfect example of what you're talking about, Keith. Was making plenty of money, was already successful, wasn't looking for his next meal, wasn't living under a bridge, was a successful guy. His wife was successful. And they wound up becoming a distributor a year in that particular company. This is way back in the 90s. But, they always come to mind when we talk about that, because I always remember that conversation. Hey, I'll just call him while I'm on my plane. And he built a heck of a business part-time, and there's so many examples like that in our industry. So your next door neighbor who's the busy doctor or lawyer or accountant or owns, 17 Subway stores, and you say, you know what, he's got plenty of money, he's not going to be interested. You don't have the right to make that decision for him or her. Let them make that decision. Worst case, Keith, they become a customer. They use a product that maybe benefits them, gives them some energy and increases their health, right?
Yep. Well, I was at the train station picking up my son as he was traveling as a young boy, and the gentleman approached me and, with an invitation to take a look at something. At that point, I had 140 employees. I had an office staff. I had a comptroller. I had three secretaries. We were a trucking company, fertilizer company, farming company. Like I say, we had over 140 full-time, year-round, 140 full-time employees. Summertime, we'd boom up to 300 employees. But, always open to, here's what you're going to find with the people that own businesses. They're always looking for additional streams of income. Doesn't mean they're going to jump on it right then. Doesn't mean that it's there. And the other thing that we'll do with this is timing. If somebody's going on vacation, don't share this with them. Wait till they get home. If their kids are getting married in 2 weeks, or they've got a college graduation coming up in a week or so, hey man, that's wonderful. I'll get back with you. Okay. Yeah. Have enough sense for the timing. Okay. But John, this is a great industry. We've been here, like you said, we've gotten a check every month for, 30 some odd years, 20, 26, 27 years with the company that we're with now. But the idea is these are skill sets that you can learn, and then you can transfer that to other. But the one thing to work on is the invitation, that 90-second invitation to get people there, and to work with your uplines. And I don't care, I didn't say your sponsor. I said your upline, the person that's upline. You might have to go 2, 3, 4. Bob was 5 levels up from me. It didn't take long for me to figure out that Bob was the one that I needed to get the information from. Everybody else was nice people. Okay. But I didn't need them to go ask Bob what I needed to know. I needed to ask Bob. And the other thing with Bob is if you're in this business and you're working the business, you don't give the information to somebody for them to go give it to somebody, for them to go give it to somebody. You look at that sparkle, that person that's maybe on your 3rd, 4th, 5th level, who has the desire to do something. Reach out to them and work with them. What are they going to do? The 4 or 5 people in between that are going to make money, they're going to be unhappy? I don't think so. I don't think so, John.
Well, Keith, in wrapping this up, because you just said 2 things that are really critical for our audience. One, Bob was 5 levels up, but because of Keith's business background, he knew, hey, this guy's a super achiever. I'm going to seek him out, get to know him. I think you told me you took him out to breakfast or lunch the first time you really spent any time with him, right? He didn't, by the way, he didn't say, well, Bob's making all this money. I'm in his downline. I'm going to make him pay the bill. I know.
Oh, wait a minute. I got to interrupt.
Okay.
I told you that Bob was to the point, don't do anything that the brand new distributor can't do. Okay. So all the times that I was with Bob, and it didn't make any difference if we were having coffee or tea or we were having lunch or we were having dinner. Okay. If there was a third person at the table, okay, if it was me, Bob, and my prospect, somebody else's prospect, whatever at the table, Bob only paid for his coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Bob only paid for his meal. Bob only paid for his part of the tip. Bob never, ever picked up the tab. Now, Bob wasn't cheap, because if it just happened to be the instance and it was just him and I, he would pick it up. But it was only if it was just he and I. If there was a third person at the table, and it didn't matter who that third person was, okay, Bob only paid for his share, because Bob's point was, if you pick up the tab somewhere and somebody can say, well, hey, John, the reason you're successful with this, you can afford to buy people coffee and lunch, and you can buy them, whatever, you can do that. I can't afford to do that.
Doesn't duplicate.
Bob was, I mean, it was amazing, because I saw Bob all the time. And like I say, but Bob only paid for his meal and left the tip for his part of whatever it was. And that was amazing.
That's one thing. But the other thing is, folks, don't miss this. Keith, you've always been a mega entrepreneur, right? You've always been in the agriculture business, right? Going back to when you were, in high school, right? I know your dad was in that business, and your uncles and all of that, with alfalfa and all sorts of things that you just mentioned. And you've always had multiple business ventures. And yet, Keith's a busy guy. He's still a busy guy. He's an old guy now, but he's still a busy guy. Every time I talk to him, he's got a meeting for this business or that business, or the business that we're in together. But the other businesses I have nothing to do with, but he's always on the go and busy. But talk about how that's built your network for your network marketing business, not necessarily where you recruit out of those businesses, but because you feel everybody needs the particular product that you market, that, hey, you ought to get on, XYZ product. Talk about that a little bit, how you segue that into these other businesses.
It works both ways. Okay. So one, when you're talking to somebody, if you believe in your product or service, they need to know about it. Okay. It doesn't matter who that person is. I don't care if they're, if they're an insurance guy you're dealing with, or a salesman that's dealing with you, an equipment dealer, a seed dealer, a banker, it doesn't matter. Okay. They at least need to know what you're doing. Okay. And so you can do that. But I think the thing that's most telling is, you want to get into a network marketing company. And you made a comment, John, about, Dan reading. That Bob was a huge reader. Okay. Bob always had a couple of books. Okay. So you want to develop these skill sets, and these skill sets are transferable into all of your other businesses. Okay. Because once you understand how the invitation works, okay, and you understand how you're directing people to get information, to make a decision, that applies in every business that you have, whether it's our banking business, whether it's our cattle brokering business, whether it's our farming business, whether it's our trucking business, or if particular happens to be our network marketing business. Those skills are all transferable. And I share the story. My son is very successful, and my son does not have a job. My son works as an independent contractor for about 4 or 5 other companies. He works for 2 banks. He works for a cattle brokering outfit. He works for a seed company, and he still runs our farming operation. So he has all these things. But about 4 or 5 years ago, the bank brought him into to the Midwest, because we're here in California. They brought him into the Midwest, and he was there, and he couldn't understand why they brought him in. And he was there. And the first day, they sent him out with one of their loan officers, and spent the day. And then the second day, he was with a different loan officer. And the third day, they sent him out with another one. And then he calls me on that Wednesday night and says, tomorrow morning, he says, they want to know how I do what I do, because I write more loans than any of these guys write. And I'm part-time on a contractor, and these guys are full-time. Well, the point was, my son didn't loan money to people that needed to borrow it. He loaned money to people that didn't know they needed his money. Okay. But he learned that because he was watching what we were doing on asking questions. An example of that was these 2 brothers were going to lease the property out to somebody to plant some permanent crops for a period of time. And he said, well, why are you doing that? And they said, well, because it's going to cost so much money. We don't have the money to do that and whatever. And he said, I'll give you the money. At the bank. It wasn't his, it was the bank's. But those are the kind of deals that he made, because once again, what he learned from here is there is no such thing as a stranger. There's only people you haven't met yet. Okay. And that applies. So you want to get into network marketing, you want to get the skill sets, get to the upline, the mentor, and develop those relationships. And once you learn how to do that, that becomes a transferable skill. Okay. It's a very transferable skill. My daughter's doing the same thing. My daughter's a school teacher, okay, with a PhD. Okay. Don't ask me why you need a PhD and to be a school teacher, but that's what she is. But those skill sets of there's no such thing as a stranger. There's only people she hasn't met yet. And her goal is for them, my son, myself, my daughter, our family. It's not for people to know about us. It's for us to know about them.
Great advice. Great advice. Hey, folks, Keith Hooper, Moving Up 2020, available on Amazon. Leaving Nothing to Chance, another book we put together with Foster Russo up in Canada. And folks, these are books written by distributors. If you're a distributor listening to this, read books written by distributors because they're going to tell you reality. Okay. Hey, listen, I'm John Solider. This is Leaving Nothing to Chance. Keith Hooper, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Leave Nothing to Chance. If you want to know more about what it takes to succeed in the network marketing space, join us again next week for another amazing episode. For additional resources and to connect with John Solider, visit leavingnothingtochance.com. Don't forget to leave a review, and we'll see you next time.